I'm Craig Nash, Senior Editor at Good Faith Media.
And I'm Hayoung Park, a social work and theology student.
We are co-hosts of the Good Faith Bible Studies podcast, where we explore and discuss the weekly biblical text and lessons found in Good Faith magazine.
We'll also share ideas for leading group discussions on each week's text and lesson.
Let's dive in. This week's passage, which is our last passage in our study of Amos, is Amos chapter 9, verses 11 through 15. On that day, I will raise up the booth of David that has fallen and repair its breaches, and raise up its ruins and rebuild it as in the days of old, in order that they may possess the remnant of Edom and all the nations who are called by my name, says the Lord who does this. The time is surely coming, says the Lord, when the one who plows shall catch up with the one who reaps, and the treader of grapes with the one who sows the seed. The mountains shall drip with sweet wine, and all the hills shall flow with it. I will restore the fortunes of my people Israel, and they shall rebuild the ruined cities and inhabit them. They shall plant vineyards and drink their wine, and they shall make gardens and eat their fruit. I will plant them upon their land, and they shall never again be plucked up out of the land that I have given them, says the Lord your God. All right, so we have a conclusion to Amos.
I know, it's very different in tone.
It is, yes. I think we talked the last 2 weeks about just how dark everything was getting.
Yeah, it's a lot of doom and fire and anger, which is justified, but now it switches to a vision and hope of redemption. Yeah, I think something that really stands out to me is kind of the second half of this passage, like verses 13 through 15, where it's describing like the one who plows shall catch up with the one who reaps, and they shall plant vineyards and drink their wine, and they shall make gardens and eat their fruit. And all of this, I think, is significant to me because it's essentially closing the loop on like all the agrarian life cycles. It's like you get to see the fruit of that sowing that these people are doing, and they're staying long enough in one place and not experiencing violence that they're able to just like complete an entire like harvest season. And I think especially for me as like a immigrant who has like, you know, moved a lot, and my family is in different places, and there's a lot of displacement in our family history. Like, I think I've learned to not take for granted just how difficult and how like beautiful it is for like this kind of thing to happen, for like multiple generations to be in one place, and for you to be able to like reap the things that your family has sown in like generational terms, and also in terms of just like literal gardens too. Yeah.
Yeah, that reminds me of, you know, the famous passage in Jeremiah 29. We always quote 11. I know the plans for you. Mm-hmm. But, you know, the context of all of that is just before that, God says, remain in the place that I have you.
Yeah.
And you also mentioned all the gardening kind of motifs. It kind of closes the loop because the book begins with Amos saying he's a farmer. Mm-hmm. And it ends with talking about all this agrarian imagery.
Yeah.
My first thought, especially in these first two verses, is it's hard for me to let go of the darkness just yet, and embrace the hope of the last two or three verses. When I was reading this in verse 12, in order that they may possess the remnant of Edom, I couldn't get this kind of tension of there's still this kind of war, battle, conquest thing going on, just a little bit of hint of it. And I was just reminded that, you know, I think most of the people in our audience and most, I think, scholars that we trust know not to connect the modern nation state of Israel with the Israel in the Bible. Mm-hmm. And that gets into a lot of complicated conversations about modern geopolitics and war and conquest and colonization. But I just couldn't help but think when reading this how I can't, even though I know that's the case, I can't remove that from my mind. This idea that even in a text of hope, there's still a little grain of you will possess this land.
Yeah.
But as you mentioned, and as Tyler mentioned in our study that we'll talk about in a moment, there's some kind of imagery that helps us move beyond that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we will discuss that when we return.
So this week's study was done also by Tyler Tinkersley, who's done a great job with this Amos series. I've really loved it. But speaking to what we were saying just a minute ago, I really love how Amos, the passage itself, and also the study resolves this tension that you brought up, Craig, of like, what does this mean that they're possessing the remnant of Edom? Does that mean that like there's a little bit of violence that predicates the redemption that's supposed to happen? And the second half of the section, as well as the study, talks about how like this redemption that happens is not like a triumphalism. It's not this image or vision of like a kingdom like on a hill and like having conquered everyone else and is like standing victorious over like all of its enemies. It's agrarian village. It's like these mountains that are dripping with the sweet wine that the community has worked so hard to bring forth, and like they're getting to like eat the fruits of their labor together. And that's the vision of a restored people. And I think that to me feels, I don't know, there's something comforting about that. And I think it also gets at just how so much of redemption is simply like ordering our common life towards the way of like God's love, and as well as just the way of Jesus's character of like it's not just about like these, you know, high on the mountain moments of like, oh, I saw this dramatic shift in my life. It's like, no, it's like how are you doing your gardening? How are you talking to your neighbor? How are you organizing your finances? Like it's all these little things that make up the vision of our life with God.
Yeah. Towards the end of Tyler's study, he has this quote, and this kind of helps reconcile some of this tension that I was having. He writes, God raises fallen leadership not to dominate, but to serve. God heals the land not as reward, but as renewal. Kingship and creation are restored together because neither can flourish without the other. When leadership is just, the land breathes. When the land is healed, communities take root. Wow. And that image, Tyler, great job. I know Tyler, his church uses our Bible studies, and I know they are happy to have read this. But man, what a beautiful just description of everything. I just love how he kind of suggests that God is not promising a restoration of the monarchy. And even if God was, this goes back to the modern nation states conversation. It's a kind of a subversion of that ideal, where it's all about repair of broken things, mending fences, healing of the land, things like this. And it's kind of these, and Tyler mentioned this language of economics and politics versus the language of harvest, which you brought up at the beginning, which I just think is a beautiful kind of bookend to this, that began in darkness and it ends in light.
Yeah, I think one thing that I've just been reflecting on as we've done this study is the things that I've learned from like indigenous scholars and theologians and folks that I've learned from of there. I think in a lot of like kind of the eco philosophy of like indigenous traditions, that connection between the wellness of the whole world and the wellness of one people or one person is so like strong, and in a way that is often discounted, I think, in more Western philosophies and theologies. And so that's just been a parallel thing that I've been thinking about and has really brought home in this study and this passage.
Well, when we return, we will talk about how your small groups can approach this passage.
Before we discuss some ideas for leading a group through this week's text and lesson, we want you to know that we have created a leader's guide to help you prepare.
The leader's guide contains an overview of the lesson, some highlights to focus on, and several discussion questions for your group to go through.
For those questions, you can focus on one or all of them or any combination. Also, feel free to adapt them for your particular group's needs.
The leader's guide can be found at goodfaithmedia.org. And as your small groups approach this, there's a lot of different ways you can approach it. You can focus on this one passage. It would be a great opportunity to just kind of focus on the whole book and see kind of where some themes emerge. I think one question that could be asked is, naming the things in your community, maybe even in your church. We talked about that last week, in your community, and just kind of branching out and naming where justice is needed and where you can see hope in that. And then a second thing, Hayoung and I talked about this beforehand, a little bit breaking the fourth wall. We record this particular one several weeks before you will hear it. And we both talked about this film, Project Hail Mary.
Yes.
Which is such a great film. And as we were just talking about the agrarian, and you were mentioning kind of indigenous wisdom, there's all these themes in that film. So I wouldn't, I don't know, by the time you listen to this, maybe it'll be available somewhere for you to watch. So it would be a great summer movie outing for your church to watch this. It's very family friendly. And it has all these themes of brokenness, restoration, the work that's required to do that.
Yeah. And I think to me, especially, that connection is a lot of the characters in there are in exile in a lot of ways. But that work, like you said, to restore is not destruction or ignorance or, I don't know, like some kind of overpowering. There's a lot of peacemaking and a lot of bridge building that's done across just different ways of being, I think.
Yeah, and the central theme of everything, all the work, and I don't think I'm giving away too much of the plot,
I don't think so.
is bound up in relationship.
Yeah.
Well, not just human relationships, but relationships with the cosmos. So anyway, just a little.
Yes, go watch it. It's so good. And speaking of movies, my other suggestion to your groups is another movie, actually. But let me give you some context. So I think when we read passages like this, they're standing as these visions of a future that have not yet happened for the original audience and even for us. And so it's really important that when we're reading prophetic words or wrestling with like injustice, that we have a proper vision of what's to come, like that we understand like what we're trying to get towards so that our day-to-day is ordered rightly. And so I think it's always helpful for me to have kind of like modern examples of like what a just society looks like or what wholeness looks like. And this is something that comes up a lot in like social work too, is like, what is the healing that we're bringing for our communities? But the movie is called The Biggest Little Farm. It's something that I watched for one of my creation care classes in seminary. And it's about this couple that just randomly kind of decides like, we want to start a farm that's like completely renewable and like really thinks about sustainability and like kindness to all the creatures on the land and restores the soil. And it just documents the messiness and the like all the trial and error and heartbreak and the hard work that was required for that. But by the end, there's just this beautiful vision that is not void of hardship, but is still so whole. And there's such like harmony in the ways that these farmers are interacting with the animals and the soil and thinking about the microbes that are feeding their trees and things. And all that to say, I just thought it was a really beautiful and tangible example of what's happening in Amos 9.
Yeah, no, that's great. And when you mentioned just how difficult it is, I'm reminded when you were talking about that, in a previous career, I worked in kind of food security work, and kind of a portion of that was spending time with folks doing urban gardening, or even just, small gardens, school gardens. And there's a theme behind folks who do that, which is it sounds really cool.
Yeah.
And then you start doing it. And, the towns most of the people listening to this live in have like gardens that have come and gone.
Oh, yeah.
There's always like a 3 or 4 year sites, high turnover, like every 4 or 5 years. Some of it is just, teachers retire or leave. But it's just, it's kind of a perfect example of how difficult the work is, but also how rewarding it is.
I mean, it's like that phrase, like everyone wants a village, no one wants to be a villager. Everyone wants a garden. That's nice. No one
wants to be a gardener.
Yeah.
The joke of writers is no one wants to write a book.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to have written a book.
Right. Everyone wants to be an author.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, we're so happy to go through all of that. What was it, 4 or 5 weeks?
Yeah, I think
6
5.
weeks of Amos. The light at the end was worth it.
Yeah.
So thank y'all for sticking with us through that.
Yes.
And we look forward to visiting next week about Philemon.
I'm Hayoung Park.
And I'm Craig Nash.
And you've been listening to the Good Faith Bible Studies podcast from Good Faith Media.
Our music comes from Pond 5.
Each weekly lesson can be found in Good Faith Magazine.
You can also sign up to receive a free digital leader's guide.
Learn about how to receive both these resources at goodfaithmedia.org.
There you can find daily news and opinion, various podcasts from our Good Faith Media team and partners, and information about the initiatives that help guide our work.
So visit us at goodfaithmedia.org, and we'll be back next week with another installment of the Good Faith Bible Studies podcast.